Hello. Um, I'm gonna sound a bit funny today. I have quite a bad hay fever. I've had very little sleep over the last week, because of the hay fever, and so my voice is funny today. It's almost like my voice is swallowing itself. So, but we're gonna persevere. Um, Now when I started the YouTube channel, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do with it, what I was going to use it for. It was more a chance for me to just sort of express some stuff that was going on inside my head and just kind of get it out of my head, really. And if people watched it, then that's great. But if they didn't, then that's fine. Um, but it wasn't going to be a vlog that was going to be full of opinions and I don't know. I wasn't going to try and be partisan in anything. But after recent events, I kind of can't just be that way. I'm not that way in real life, so why would I be that way on here? So I'm not gonna be. And I'm gonna start talking about what I think and what I feel about the world and my concerns and my hopes and my fears and if you don't want to watch, don't watch. But if you do want to watch, then you can. So this is my first kind of political one. I did one a few weeks ago where just before the election, and I was like, please go and vote. And people did vote. It was quite a good turnout. Still not as high as I wish it could be, but it was not bad. And Labour did really well considering where they come from and the naysayers and the press working against them. They did really well, and I'm pretty proud of what we achieved. And I think the day after when we got the results, it felt really depressing. But actually, when you look at it, it was a really good day. And it does suggest that there is some hope. Now, I've always been fairly liberal in my views. My family, for the most part, are as well. And I think that that's probably informed a lot of my opinions. But I also think just being a human being in the world should lend itself to being liberal. I just care about my fellow man. I don't just think about myself and my own family. I think about other people too, and I want them to have the same opportunities that I do. And I've come from what you could consider a relatively privileged background. I've always had a comfortable home, a nice roof over my head. I have had parents that love me and have given me everything that they could, and I'm lucky enough that they have stayed together as well. So that's quite a nice, stable home environment. I went to schools. I always went to state education. I went to a grammar high school, but I never went to any kind of paid education. I've had good jobs in the past. So yeah, I've come from a somewhat privileged background. Obviously, there are people that have more than I do and have had more than I have had, but there are also lots of people who haven't had as much as I've got, and I'm very aware of that, and I've always been very aware of that, and it's a very important thing that my kids are aware of that too, that they know that they're in quite a privileged position, and that they shouldn't take it for granted. They should be grateful for everything they have. And because of that knowledge, because of that awareness, it is so important to me that I use the privilege that I have to help raise other people up, give them what their situation in life, their whatever it may be, whether it be financial issues, whether it be emotional issues, whatever it is that could be causing them to not have the same things that I have, I want to help them in that. I want to give them what I can. And I think that's really important. And I also think it's really important not to treat people differently because they either have more or less than you. I think we're all human. We are all the same. You take our skin off and we are all just skeletons underneath. There is nothing different about us. We are all the same. And we therefore should treat each other the same. Now, another aspect of my privilege is the fact that I am white. And I can't ignore that. I can't pretend that that doesn't mean that I have more opportunities offered to me in the world. And to pretend that that's not the case, well, it's either naive or ignorant. Now, I can't change the colour of my skin in the same way that no one else can either. And so the only thing that I can do to rectify that, to ensure that it is fair, is that I treat people the same as me, as I treat people how I would expect to be treated. If someone is pleasant to me, I am pleasant to them. If someone is rude to me, I try not to be rude back, but I give them their space. I try to understand. I try to think, well, maybe they're not being rude to me because of something to do with me, but maybe there's something going on inside of them. That's not always easy to do, and believe me, I do lose my temper with people and get irritated with people, but it's important. If you can have that compassion, take that time, take that breath to think that there might be something going on with that person that you can understand and say, okay, I'm going to give you your space. Yesterday, the Tories made a deal with the DUP. Now, they didn't make this deal because they think that the DUP are great. They didn't make this deal because they believe in the DUP's policies. They didn't make this deal because they think the DUP are going to help them create a fair world for everybody. They made this deal because they can't bear the thought that they won't be in power. If they don't make a deal with the DUP, Jeremy Corbyn and his Labour, his version of the Labour Party, will become the government. And for the Tories, that's the worst thing that could happen, because all they want is power. They have very little interest in making the world a better place for people, as far as I can see anyway. If they did, they wouldn't make a deal with the DUP. The DUP are pro-life, which sounds... I always have a problem with the pro-life title, because it sounds really positive and it sounds like a really lovely thing. Pro-life, woo! But it's not. It's about taking the control away from women. It's about having control over women's bodies. It's about making decisions for them which are not their decisions to make. And that's another issue for another day, because I could talk for hours on abortion and women's rights in particular. But yeah, that's just one thing the DUP stand for. It scares me, the world that we are living in at the moment, where people like Trump can be in power in a large superpower country, where Theresa May and her cronies are so obsessed with being in power that they will make a deal with essentially the devil, a party that is so incredibly right-wing, that is misogynistic and racist and has ties to terrorism. They will make a deal with them over the possibility that they actually step down from government for a bit and listen to the will of the people. It's astonishing. It's not the world that I thought I was bringing my children into. It's not the world that I wanted to bring my children into, and it's heartbreaking. Every day you hear more of these terrible things are happening. It's now been announced that the Supreme Court in America has basically said that they will go ahead with Trump's travel ban. Now, there are a few things that they've said no to, but essentially they're prepared to go ahead with the travel ban, which is such a terrible thing that's been allowed to happen. And there was so much anger against it when it was first proposed. There were so many protests that surely that should be enough to tell people that this is not okay. This is not what we want to happen. And, you know, in a democracy, you listen to the people. Well, apparently not. Apparently that's not how it works anymore. Apparently we don't listen to the people. Now, when it comes to Brexit, I was a Remainer. I remain a Remainer. I agree that the EU has its problems, but I think that you should work with the EU to try and fix it, to try and make it better, to try and make it work for everybody. I think walking away from it is foolhardy and is a huge, huge risk to the future of this country and the strength of this country going forward. But whatever you think of the referendum, the majority did vote leave. Again, I have my issues with how the referendum was run and what was done. And I'm not entirely sure that people did really want to leave. I don't think everybody even really understood what they were voting for. But the votes are the votes, and we voted to leave. It's fine. But the way it's being handled, the way it's being dealt with, the attitude towards it is so unbelievably stupid, unbelievably stubborn, and it's just not going to work. Now, like I say, this is democracy. People voted to leave. Fine, we'll leave. But we didn't vote on how we would leave. That was never part of the conversation. It was certainly not on the ballot paper. And the idea that we're now just going to leave all of that negotiating up to people that not everybody in the country wants to be leading it, and especially the generations that are going to have to live with the results of this for longer, they, on the whole, voted for a different party and they wanted somebody else to manage this negotiation, and yet they're not going to get that. It's a really, really, really strange time to be alive. It's a really terrible time to be alive. And on top of all of that, we've got all the little small incidents. And when I say small incidents, I don't mean insignificant in any way. I mean, they're very significant, but, you know, they're not they're not these big democratic votes and opinion polls and whatever. They are the things that just keep happening. We keep getting these moments of terror. There was London Bridge, there was Westminster Bridge, there was the Finsbury Park attack, which was a terrorist attack. We've got the Manchester bombing, we've got all of these little things going on. And then we've also got the Black Lives Matter movement, which is such an important movement. And this whole all lives matter thing can go, well, you know where it can go, because of course all lives matter, but do you know what? Not all lives are being persecuted right now. This movement of Black Lives Matter is an extremely important movement. Black men and women are being persecuted purely for the colour of their skin when we should have moved past this by now. Why are we still doing this? Why are we still doing this? Now, I know I've touched on lots of different subjects through this video. I have so much more to say on all of the issues that I've spoken about, but I don't want to be here for hours. You don't want me to be here for hours. But this is just to give you a slight insight into the complications and debates that are going on inside my brain constantly, as I'm sure they are in many of your brains. I guess the thing that we can take from the recent election in this country is that people who feel similarly to me are not alone. There are lots of us, and a lot of us feel that way, and a lot of us want something better and want something fairer for everybody, and that does give me hope. We can do it, we can push, we can make the world the place we want it to be. I can ensure that my children have the same rights as I did growing up, and as I hope to continue to have, and more. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. And let's just try and keep hoping. Okay, bye.